To all those participating in this Zoom, we want to welcome you. First of all, hope that you had a Shabbat Shalom, a meaningful weekend. To those of you on the East Coast who are right now under storm conditions, weather conditions, we just want to wish you the best. Stay safe, stay healthy. A lot has happened since Wednesday, our last briefing, both in the areas of Judea and Samaria, Tulkarem, Qalqilia, many cities, Jenin, things that have been happening in southern and central Gaza, as well as events on the northern border. And to update us and to give us insight analysis is Major General Nadav Padan, who's going to speak about what's been happening over the course of the last 3.5 days since we last met with Major General Padan. General Padan, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Steve. First of all, I want to apologize for speaking from my car. I was supposed to be like 4 minutes ago someplace, but traffic here is insane. So let's go to what happened in Israel. So if I follow from the north to the south and start with Iran, we all heard about the bombing in the suicide bomber in Iran during the Soleimani Memorial Day. ISIS already took responsibility for it, although the Iranian did whatever they can to put it on us without success. The US and other Western intelligence institution declared that it's come from Daesh, and then Daesh, ISIS took responsibility. So the Iranian are still in the second period of the war, try to be involved and not just encourage their proxies in Yemen or in Lebanon and other places. When it comes to Hezbollah, they had to respond to the elimination of Aruri in the Dakhla and Beirut. We spoke about it last time, and their first response was to launch quite a unique attack towards what they call strategic bases along the border between Israel and Lebanon. They tried to attack and destroy the air control base at the center of the northern border on Mount Meron, without success, by the way. And are launching rocket toward our kibbutzim and settlements and cities with the same kind of method that we spoke about, just trying to create damages, just try to destroy building and create a situation that people that withdraw from the north border will have hard time to come back. While in Lebanon, by the way, there is over 100,000 people that withdraw from the border and move to the north to the Litani River, and that's a huge source of pressure on Hezbollah. If you heard Hezbollah with his declaration, the two declarations that he had last week, both of them open an opportunity to finish the war when the war in Gaza is ended, and to move to some kind of agreement. I won't put all my card on it, but it's a window that's been opened by Nasrallah, and it's important. We see what happened in Syria and in other places, which changed the rhythm or the amount of terror attack toward American and British bases and toward other places in Syria and in Iraq. And we can see what happened in Judea and Samaria. Judea and Samaria have been pushed by Hamas to become part of the war without success so far. We can see here and there cells of Hamas trying to get involved in the city of Tulkarem in Jenin. We had 2 or 3 main strikes in Jenin and one in Tulkarem that changed a bit the way that policemen try to figure out how to solve this traffic jam. Oh, I'm getting out. Okay. And we had to use Air Force during the operation in Jenin that changed a lot the amount of casualties. We had 14 people that lost their life during those Palestinian terrorists that lost their life through those operations. So there is changes in Judea and Samaria as well. The main arena still is the Gaza Strip. In Gaza Strip, we're about to finish cleaning the main subterranean strategic tunnel in the north part of Gaza, and we start digging into those strategic tunnel in the area of Khan Younis at the south, and we keep our operation in two other places, in the refugees camp of the center and in close to the city of Rafiah, without getting all the way through the border between Israel and Egypt. We are trying to reach some kind of agreement with the Egyptian before we are getting forward with this operation. People in Israel start to feel a little bit unsatisfied from the time it takes to clean the city of Gaza. Although I must tell you, and I must remind everybody, that the IDF told everyone that he could and listen from the very beginning that it will take a year or so. So although there is here and there criticism about what's going on in Gaza, we have to remind ourselves that from the very beginning, we knew that it's going to be a long journey. It's going to take at least a year to clean the place. The place is full with subterranean system, with slicks and places that been digged for years under the ground, and it takes time to clean it up. There is no shortage in those kind of effort. So it's going to take till the end of the year, at least till the end of 2024. What we start sees happen is that the IDF changed the ways dealing with the reservists, and we are releasing part of the units, the reservist unit, to become part of, to go back home and help the economy of Israel to go back to track. When it comes to the agreement between Israel and Egypt, and the agreement between Israel and Qatar about releasing hostages, there is nothing changed over the last 2 weeks, and especially after the elimination of Aruri. They are still speaking to us. They didn't close the door, but nothing changed. There is
Major
no
General
other option.
Padan?
Yes.
Could I ask you two questions about some of the things that you've shared with us?
Yeah.
The first question is, going back to the Northern Front, you described now there's 100,000 people in southern Lebanon that are living north of the Litani River. And as you shared with us earlier in the week, many of the Radvan, their elite terrorists, have moved as well, not necessarily north of the Litani, but further north. In the event that Lebanon, and you shared with us as well that Nasrallah's already, so to speak, telegraphed certain notions that he may be open for a discussion, some kind of a rapprochement for a short time. If they do that, from your perspective, I'm going to give you three options. Is that a function of Iran pushing them to do that? Is that a function of them doing it on their own? Or is that a function of both they and Iran realizing they're not in a position to win this with Israel and they better wait for another day? What would be your assessment of that?
So I think it was a tactical movement. They were being under huge threat of Israeli Air Force close to the border and Israeli artillery. And they moved from the traditional post to a temporary post up to the north. I mean, it was a tactical military movement, nothing strategic change. But when you have to set an agreement, and part of the agreement that we want to achieve is to ask those troops to move north to the Litani River, it's going to be easier for Nasrallah to accept this kind of agreement because they're already there in some places. So I see a lot of positive things in those kind of tactical movement, although to your question, it's just military tactical maneuver that done to secure the ability of those troops to exist, alive, to survive. That will happen. I mean, and if you go to the equipment and the skills and the tools the Hezbollah used during the last few days, nothing dramatic change. Although there is speaks about accurate rocket, we don't have any evidence that will happen. They declare some kind of declaration that you can understand that they use different kind of rocket, but we didn't see it on the ground, to be honest. So what we're seeing on the ground is the continue of those tactical friction along the border and tactical maneuver that's been done to help the special forces of Hezbollah to survive.
The second question, if you could elaborate for us what you shared, that before the IDF goes to the deep southern part of Rafah or Rafiah, which is on the Egyptian border, there would have to be some negotiation with the Egyptian military. Could you elaborate and explain what the issues are there?
So under the agreement that we had with Egypt, and Egypt were part of most of the movement and most of the decision in Gaza Strip all over the last few years. And we agree not to have certain kind of forces, tanks and others along the border between Israel and Egypt. When Egypt fought ISIS in Sinai Peninsula, they asked us for permission to let the special forces get into the Sinai Peninsula and change the annex to the peace agreement, the military annex to the peace agreement. So we're asking the same right now. Sorry, for the Egyptian to allow us to operate with different kind of forces that are not part of the military annex to the peace agreement along the border between Israel and Egypt, and between Gaza Strip and Egypt, along the Rafah corridor, what we call Philadelphia corridor.
And from the intelligence that you have and that others have, the assumption is most of the very serious equipment that Hamas has used, they used on October 7th, they're using now, most of that came through tunnels between the Egyptian and Gaza border along the Philadelphia corridor, which is why that strategically is so significant.
I would say that significantly part of it smuggled through the border between Egypt and Gaza. You have to remember that the city of Rafah is actually divided between Egypt and Gaza Strip. So there is families that are split. Part of the family in Egypt, the other in Gaza Strip. They have very tight, strong relation. When it comes to smuggling, it's from one living place of the family in Gaza, they're moving to the other living place of the same family in Egypt. It's very easy for them.
Strategically, that Philadelphia corridor is extremely significant for any long-term sustained security that Israel will have, i.e. the prevention of rockets, of bombs, of who knows what RPGs coming through to the hands of Hamas.
Absolutely. To block the ability of Hamas to smuggle into a weapon and military equipment into Gaza, we have to control three passes of sources into Gaza Strip. From the sea, from the ground, I mean, in containers that bring drugs and other stuff to Gaza Strip, and under the ground mainly along the border between Egypt and Gaza Strip. And if we want to make sure that Hamas won't be able to rebuild himself again, we must control the all three. And we must control the border between Egypt and Gaza Strip. And we are moving forward with this negotiation. We have some agreement. We just have to continue with this negotiation. I have all the reason to believe that we can solve it with the Egyptian.
Our last question for you is an area that you were discussing in terms of Tulkarem, Jenin, where we lost a member of the border police, the Shmar HaGvul. What's happening there? The depth and the significance of what is being dismantled, of who's being arrested. If you could elaborate a little bit more, you have in the past, but particularly in terms of what we've seen over the last week.
So we're dealing with cells of three organizations. When it comes to Tulkarem, it was mainly Hamas. When it comes to Jenin, it was Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and even Fatah, the Tanzim, the organization that work under the PLO, under Fatah in Jenin. And they are trying to copy what they see in Gaza, by the way, using IEDs, improvised explosive devices. That the reason for the event that those two border police combat soldiers lost their life last night. It was IED, improvised explosive device, and they're trying to dig tunnels, and they're trying to copy the tactical lesson learned from Gaza Strip, although it's different terra and they got different abilities.
Just for the people who are participating, an IED, if you could elaborate, is a roadside bomb. It's something that could blow up a Humvee. It could blow up a military vehicle.
So it's a title of huge families of improvised explosive devices that can go from anti-man's explosive devices to anti-tank explosive devices. Some of them are the size of bird that it's half a ton of ammunition that bury under the ground that can destroy armored truck or even tanks sometimes. So it's a huge family. What we saw in Jenin so far is a few hundred kilos, which is like 500 pounds IEDs. Those are significantly big IEDs, and I don't know the exact size of the IED from last night, but it seems to me from the videos that it's at least 400-pound IED. It's a very big explosive device that can destroy a truck, and that's what happened.
Are those smuggled, or those are actually built in the Jenin factories themselves?
So they build it in Jenin, but they use TNT that they steal from mines along the border between Israel and Jordan, for example, or old mine in Judea and Samaria. They just dig and pull out the mines and use the TNT from those mines to create those improvised explosive devices. They also build their own improvised explosive materials, which is not that sophisticated. But when you see big bomb, it's mainly TNT.
Thank you. Are there any other topics, any thoughts you want to share with us? Just before that's the case, I want to share with everyone, literally in the last minute, a very, very urgent issue came up with the special envoy of anti-Semitism, who we advertised would be joining Major General Nadav Padan, and that, of course, is, I apologize, Michal Cutler. Michal Cutler, who we've had as a guest for our briefing in the past, specifically said she will do a rain check. We're going to see if we can get her either for Wednesday or next Sunday. But because of an urgent thing that came up the last minute, she literally had to, to cancel about 5 minutes before we were about to go on the broadcast. We will have her in an upcoming briefing. But I apologize. I want to go back for the last thoughts of Major General Nadav Padan. Any thoughts you want to share with us in terms of what's happening, what we should be looking forward to?
So the last thing I want to share is that this pattern of war, which is a very long war, will force us to keep our unity, to be together, and to stop the criticism inside our people and between the IDF and the leadership, and clean this war from politics, because it's going to be very tough to continue speaks and ask the reservists to risk their life to secure Israel if we start moving back to the criticism and the friction that we had before October 7, in October 6. So our main effort, if I can say, that we have a significant role in keeping it together, is to keep our people together, to keep the unity, to make sure that spiritually we are ready to fight a long fight. Otherwise, we don't gonna win it. To win Hamas, we have to be able to do this long journey. And to do this long journey, we have to have a support. So what we're doing as the FIDF, by sending our care and support to the people of Israel, is significantly important those days. It's really what will able the Israel and the IDF win this war. So thank you again for your support. It's the best ammunition you can send to Israel, better than any helmet, any drone, or whatever. Spiritual, the IDF; spiritual, the spirit of Israel, and let us be able to keep the spirit for the end of the war and win this war in Gaza Strip and other places. So thank you.
Major General Pradhan, thank you. And to those who are participating, one area that we really need help for, and besides what we do during the war, we've received a request from the Ministry of Defense, from what's called ACA, the Human Resources Branch of the Army, that as the battalions are taken out of the war, and that in the case of most of them, it's not going to happen anytime soon. But as they're taken out, there's something in Hebrew known as Shvuah Lechidut. We refer to it as the week of soldier recharge. It's a week of rehabilitation, of rejuvenation, where they're taken to one of two facilities that we fund and that we operate. One is in Ashkelon, the other's in Givat Olga. And during that week, after a long, hard war, it gives the soldiers the opportunity to debrief, to be assessed by medical professionals, mental health professionals, to bond, not wearing their uniform, but through incredible educational exercises, other exercises, and just to breathe and to come together as a unit. This is something that the Army is asking us for. They feel that each of these battalions, after what they've been through, deserves it. It's a new request we've received. The cost, a battalion, if you're dealing with, for instance, a infantry battalion, you're probably looking at an average of 500 soldiers. If it's a tank battalion or an artillery battalion, it's 250 to 300 soldiers. And the cost of that is around 400,000 shekel, about 125,000 shekel. That's the dollars, $125,000. We are looking for those who may want to sponsor that. And in turn, they really become a sponsor, a lifelong sponsor of the battalion for funding that. And that's a request that we received from the Army just recently. Those who may have an interest, besides the daily, I'll just give you an example. Last week on Thursday, we sent $500,000 for urgent needs. On Friday, we got a request for urgent needs. I have not gotten a request today, but we're expecting one tomorrow for urgent needs. So that's above and beyond what we're doing during the war. If anyone has an interest in that and ultimately becoming a lifelong friend of one of these incredible battalions, we are looking for sponsors. Thank you. And wishing everyone. We'll be in touch on Wednesday at noon Eastern Time, 9 Pacific Time. We'll be back. We may have Michal Cutler at that point in time, or we may have another special guest. We thank you for participating, and we thank you for supporting the soldiers of Israel and the people of Israel. Have a wonderful day.